Good afternoon, everyone. There is a story, a very horrific story. It's an extremely sad story that has been completely swept under the rug by the mainstream media because it does not fit their narrative. But I believe that it absolutely deserves attention. What happened here, I'm reading off of Daily Mail. They covered the story. And it was a 5-year-old boy that was shot in the head at point blank range by his neighbor. It was a black man named Darius Sessoms, and he murdered a 5-year-old boy named Cannon Hinnant, and he did so right in front of his two sisters. The story says that his two sisters and him were playing, I guess, right out in their front lawn, and the neighbor came out, Darius Sessoms came out and shot the boy, had shot Cannon Hinnant right in the head and killed him right in front of his two sisters. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the horrific scene of your two sisters watching you get killed, shot in the head as blood is leaking out of your brain right in front of your two sisters? And can you imagine if the roles were reversed here? If you just change the races in this story, it would have wall-to-wall coverage, and the suggestions of racism would be all over the place immediately. There would be headlines like, can black people trust their white neighbors after white man kills black boy right in front of his front lawn? I mean, this would be the coverage, and you know it, but since it does not fit the media narrative, which is that white people are racist, all cops are bad, that's pretty much their basic narrative that they like to push. Since it does not fit that narrative, they don't make any mention of this story at all. And I mean, it is extremely sad because what this does is it gives the public a false impression of what is actually happening. Because in reality, there's plenty of homicides that happen in America. There's plenty of very bad, cruel, unjust incidents that happen in America. I mean, sometimes the victims are white, sometimes they're black, sometimes the suspects are white, sometimes they're black. But if you just have a singular focus, if you just cherry pick the stories that you cover, and you cherry pick it in such a way that you only cover stories where there is a white suspect that victimizes or kills a black person, then what is the general public going to be? What is the general public going to believe? They're going to believe that white people are out in the masses, that America is systemically racist. You have white people going out killing black people all the time. Why? Because that's all they see on the mainstream media. Every single time they tune into CNN and MSNBC, that is the only thing they see. So that is going to be the reality that they live in. But this is not the case. We have many very unjust incidents that happen. We have unjust homicides. This is an example of one. You got a 25-year-old black man who's neighbors with some white people. He goes out and shoots a 5-year-old boy right in the head. And the mainstream media completely ignores it. If you go on YouTube and you type in Cannon Hinnant, and you will see absolutely no coverage at all from the mainstream media, no MSNBC, no NBC, no CNN, no ABC News. The only coverage you get about Cannon Hinnant, the only coverage you get about this story is from just random YouTube channels. And I'll scroll down. I mean, we're going to scroll way down here, and I will show you absolutely no coverage at all from the mainstream media. We got Tyrone Magnus, Unit 88. We got Steven Crowder. We got Big Hearst 916, The Lonely Banter, The Pascal Show. CBS made brief mention of it. Good on them. The Conservative Twins, they probably have the most high-profile YouTube account, 480,000 views. So good on them for making sure that people know about this story. And, scrolling way down here, we got Anthony Bryan Logan. But once again, I mean, mostly just YouTube channels. No national mainstream media coverage at all, besides the exception. Look, Fox News covered it. But like I said, no MSNBC, no CNN. They completely blacklisted the story. And you know, if the roles were reversed, if it was a white person that had murdered a little black boy, there would be wall-to-wall coverage of this incident. And I'm just going to scroll way down here just to show you the lack of coverage. I mean, you can scroll down as far as you want. And I mean, you will not see a CNN. You will not see an MSNBC at all covering the story. And going back to the central claim of Black Lives Matter and why this movement was started, why it was needed, and they will tell you because black people are being killed and everyone ignores it, no one acknowledges it, nothing is being done about it. And I mean, there is so much evidence to the contrary. Not only is it acknowledged, not only is there mass public outrage and wall-to-wall media coverage whenever there is an incident where there is a white suspect that hurts, kills, victimizes a black person. But that is pretty much the sole and primary focus of the mainstream media. That is the only time there is any public outrage that is garnered. And if you look at even over the last year, I mean, we have 15 FBI agents going out to investigate a noose hanging from a rich black NASCAR driver's garage. And then we have the Jussie Smollett case as well. When you look at the amount of coverage, at the amount of attention, where there is even a suggestion of racism, which these stories turned out to be complete false, complete phony stories, completely contrived and made up, but they still got wall-to-wall coverage. And for some reason, the general public thinks that we need a group to tell us that Black Lives Matter because people are just not paying attention. Once again, this is such a false narrative. And not only is it false, but the absolute opposite is actually true, that when a white person is killed, when you reverse the roles and a white person is killed by a black person, it gets almost no coverage at all. So if there is any group based off merit, based off the proof that I just showed you, when you actually look at what the mainstream media covers, if there is any group that needs attention because their murders go completely unacknowledged, it's when white people get murdered. And that's a fact. That is a cold, hard fact. I mean, you could prove it. I did another video on this where I talked about the white George Floyd. There was a guy named Tony Timpa that you probably never heard of before. And a few years before George Floyd got murdered by a cop kneeling on his neck, Tony Timpa died in the exact same manner. And when you go on Google and you look at the number of search entries for how many times Tony Timpa was Googled versus George Floyd, I mean, it was like 50-1. It's absolutely insane. So this whole notion that black people are killed and no one cares, there's no public outrage, there's no media coverage, I mean, it is absolutely false. It's the complete opposite of that. Anyway, that is my video. Hope you like it. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe, and I will see you all next time.